What's the worst impulse purchase you've ever made? Why was it so bad? How would you do things differently next time?
Well, I've had a lot of bad impulse buys in my life because I see something cool and I'm like, yeah, I want that. But I think the worst impulse buys for me are when I'm planning on getting something eventually and then I see it or there's a semi-good deal and I'm like, all right, let's do it now, even when I'm not ready. The latest one was 4 pigs that we bought. We're going to breed them, and we weren't 100% ready yet on our homestead, but I was like, hey, there's the opportunity. Let's do it. There's been days where I regret it and days where I'm like, oh, this is cool. But that was definitely the most recent and biggest impulse buy we've had lately.
To snowball
Yeah.
to that, we also had to build the fence for the pigs to go in.
So not only did we buy the pigs, but we also had to put the fence. So it was something we were planning on doing, but weren't ready for yet. But I pulled the trigger a little quicker.
We still have those pigs.
We do.
So I'm definitely guilty here. I definitely was the one that in our relationship has had the worst impulse buy, just because I think it was such a large expense. We were doing so good. We had kind of prioritized a lot of things. We kind of gotten ourselves all the way out of debt except for our mortgage. And, we had got a promotion at work, and, it just was one of those things where I was like, I need a new truck. And I was like, I'm working hard and I deserve this. And that was such a conceited thing to do looking back, just to think that those resources that we've been blessed with are not ours by any means, and kind of getting locked in that moment. And just the worst part about it that made it the worst expense was honestly that I knew in the moment that it wasn't probably the right decision. Holly we had talked about it briefly. It was one of those things where I had mentioned it maybe 2 or 3 times, and then all of a sudden it was like, hey, I'm gonna go to the dealership today, and she's like, okay, and
I wasn't there.
Yeah, she wasn't there, and
phone call,
so I was like calling her on the phone, and I'm like, no, it's a great deal, and
trying to be a supportive wife.
So it was a terrible idea. We have since sold that truck, and to think of kind of the lost time for our journey and stuff, just on that one impulsive decision was really, it was kind of detrimental, but it was also a great learning experience, I think, or experience rather. I think, that's where you make the growth, is you have to kind of make those mistakes to just, now we know better. So
the worst impulse purchase that I've ever made was, I was in the Air Force, and after I got back from a deployment, I had a bunch of cash saved up and I needed a car. So I wrecked my truck before I left, and so I needed to buy a new car. And I had 10 days to make the purchase. And so instead of just going and buying a cheap used car that would get me by, I went and found a brand new, a year early Camry, and blew all the money that I saved over the last year. If I had the opportunity to do it again, obviously I would just take a small portion of the money I'd saved and gone and found a used car of some kind.
You want to go first?
I love ads. Love, love, love. I am a proponent of ads. So my most recent purchase was really connected to momentum. We dropped Cheryl off at church one morning, and I took the children to get something to eat at Hardee's nearby, and I noticed they had a fried egg and bacon biscuit. Normally the eggs are pre-mixed, and so this was a real live fried egg. I saw it on the menu and I said, that's what I'm ordering. Total impulse food.
And this is why our food budget goes up. Because he gets taken in by the ads. And we've created these 3 other little people that live in our house that do the same thing. Hey, mommy, do you see that steak sandwich on TV? And I would say we had this discussion earlier, and my biggest impulse purchase was prior to our marriage. And I was driving home from work one afternoon and I saw this gorgeous, shiny red Ford Expedition. Now, I was a single woman. I had a Honda Civic at the time. Did I need the Ford Expedition? No. Could I really afford it? No, not really. But I wanted it. And I passed by it. It was like just calling me every time I walked by it. And I went and purchased it. Now, it did turn out to be something that I could use later because a year later, my mom totaled my Honda Civic. So it became the only vehicle that I owned. But it was definitely an impulse buy. I wouldn't do it again because number one, I'm a smarter car shopper. And my interest rate was sky high. I probably paid for that truck 2 times over.